less money this season so we can get the Sixers in a situation where they can upgrade the roster, make a run at a championship. In an interview with Yahoo Sports, the Beard recounted discussing the Sixers roster situation with President of Basketball Operations, his boy, Daryl Morey. Quote, I had conversations with Daryl, and it was explained how we could get better and what the market value was for certain players. I told Daryl to improve the roster, sign who we needed to sign, and give me whatever is left over. This is how bad I want to win. I want to compete for a championship. That's all that matters to me. At this stage, I'm willing to take less to put us in a position to accomplish that. Big Perk back with me, and Tim Bontemps. Perk, what does this say about James Harden?
It says a lot. It says that he's finally losing himself in the team. And I'd rather this summertime James Harden than the past summertime James Harden. Look, he's thinking about basketball right now. Like he wasn't thinking about basketball last year around this time. The fact that he took a pay cut and the fact that they were able to go out and get P.J. Tucker and Daniel House, 3D and D guys to defend the wing position, which is, by the way, the most important position in the NBA. I'm all in for this version of James Harden. He's been working out. He's been in the gym. I'm around here in Houston hearing nothing but great things. I'm ready to see him have a bounce-back season. I think it's going to be phenomenal with him and Joel Embiid. I'm ready for their top 3 team in the Eastern Conference right now.
Tim, on the other hand, I think House is a talented and effective player, and everyone knows P.J. Tucker is real good, and for the playoffs, that's a guy you want. So it's really good for the Sixers. These are the kind of underrated moves that make a team go from, second tier to first tier. Yep. On the other hand, are you buying what Harden's selling? Like, what was his marketplace anyway? Where was he going to find a better situation than he has in Philly right now?
Well, look, I think to Perk's point, actions speak louder than words, right? And let's see what James Harden looks like when he gets to training camp. Let's see what James Harden looks like when it gets to December and January. Is he going to be able to get back to being the guy that when he got to Brooklyn was one of the 5 best players in the league the first 2 months he was there before he hurt his hamstring?
The best player in the league when he first got to Brooklyn.
He might have been. Or is he going to be the guy that he was really for the most part of the last calendar year, which is a really good player, still a top 25, 30-ish player,
not a superstar,
but not a guy that you're building your team around and looks like a guy who could be an MVP candidate. If he's the former, the Sixers have a chance to win a title.
That's right.
If he's the latter, they're what they were last year, which is a very good team, but not good enough to win.
That's the point, Perk. What Tim just said to me, like, okay, Harden, I hear you. You're making all these sacrifices for the team. But even if you can't be what Tim just described, you still are going to have to hit big shots in the playoffs. Doesn't this put more pressure on him to do that finally?
No, because who have you been seeing in those workout videos with James Harden besides Sam Cassell? The young fella, Maxey, meaning that James Harden is taking him under his wings. Meaning next year when he comes back, he's going to be a better version of himself. Look, James Harden has already made the transition of being going from being the leading scorer to one of the best facilitators. He averaged 10.5 assists last year with 21 points a game. Now, can he up that and up his efficiency? Absolutely. And I think with a summer off and hard work in training like he's been doing, he's going to come back a better James Harden, which is going to make Philly a better team. And like Tim said, a contender and possibly bring home the championship.
Yeah, but I mean, listen, Maxey he's actually an underrated player. He got better and better as the season went on. He's very young. He's a chance to be, the Sixers need this guy and that guy. Maybe they have him already in Maxey. But to your point, Tim, whether or not he's a superstar, James Harden has spent a career being less than his best self in the playoffs. I used to say this about Steph Curry in the finals. Guess what he just did? Shut me up. He finally did it. He came through in the biggest way on the biggest stage in ways he hadn't before. Yep. Doesn't Harden need to do that still?
Well, I mean, look, I think, as I said before, for the Sixers to have a chance to win a championship, he's got to be that player again. If he's just a very good player.
But a very good player can be, as long as he's a clutch player, then he maybe doesn't have to be a 10 out of 10 for him. He can be an 8 or a 9, but be a 10 when it matters most.
I mean, sure, obviously it would help if he hit some huge shots in the playoffs. But I think even if he doesn't hit huge shots in the playoffs, if the Sixers win a championship and he's just good, or he's just good in clutch moments, that'll be fine.
Sure.
So to me, it really just comes back to just how good is he going to be able to get to? Is he going to be able to get back to being that guy who had the burst to get to the rim, to get by people, to be explosive and make explosive plays? He did not have that at any point last season. No matter what he's saying now, if he doesn't get back to that guy again, this team's ceiling even with these additions, is a lot lower than people think.
Perk, I would hate for this dude
hey,
to
Max.
end his career without getting that done. Yeah.
Me too, Max and Tim. I didn't know it was wrinkled shirt day. Next time, give me the reminder.
My wrinkled shirt.
I
Is it
mean,
wrinkled?
they don't have
I
an
took the
iron.
top-
They don't have an iron in the studio this morning.
It's not wrinkled.
I'm used to seeing
Well,
that
maybe a little
steamer.
bit.
Yeah,
A little bit. By this time of day, Perk,
Yeah.
I've been going since 5:15 a.m. Been working since 5:15. The shirt's going to get a little wrinkled. It's just what's going to. I work for a living. I can't. All right. The great Kendrick.
This whole coordinated thing, playing in the Drew League, the shot comes out the same day. This is a message from LeBron James saying, hey, I'm still here. I'm still really good, but we need to get more around me to get where I want to go. And as we stand here right now, the Lakers aren't good enough.
But Perk, Tim, Perk, I'll address this to you. Like, you call me like a stupid media guy or fan, but I just take a step back and look at the big picture. LeBron doesn't say things publicly just to do it, right? He sends messages. And and when you say he does things passive aggressively, he sends them, publicly, but doesn't address people directly a lot of the time in the press. Okay, he and Westbrook are in the same place at the same time, but they don't get together. They're in the building together, but they're not together. Westbrook and his agent part ways, and his agent says, well, look, a team has given up a boatload to get him. This time, they need to attach value to move him. I don't think it's a good idea for him to move, and he felt otherwise. I mean, the implication is maybe Russell Westbrook did want to go somewhere, Perk. So, to me, it sounds like LeBron's addressing Westbrook here. He's addressing Russ here.
Well, I mean, it's everybody, Max, and it's including Russ. I mean, just think about a lot of, post-game interviews. Russell Westbrook, he didn't take a lot of accountability. That's what I was mad at him for last year. He wasn't accountable for the poor play he had. And one thing we know about LeBron James, right? He's very active on his social media. We know all that. And he don't miss anything. He may not comment on everything, but he sees it all. And so when I went to the point of saying, if Russell Westbrook is not traded, which, Max, you hit it right on the point, that's the reason that him and Thad parted ways is because Russell Westbrook won out. And Thad was telling them, no, man, this is not going to be good for you in the future. You have to stick it out with Darvin Ham and the Lakers and show them that you could take a lesser role.
All right, so Tim, explain to me where I'm wrong about this. Westbrook is considered a liability on the books, but I see him as a potential asset, particularly by the trade deadline. He makes $47 million, and then it's off the books. Now, there must be teams in the league with 2 players each in the 20s or 3 players in the high teens that are nice players, but it hamstrings the team a bit. They can't make moves they want to make. The contracts extend into the future. But if those kind of players go to a team that already has superstars, they could be useful. At the deadline, especially when you have to pay him very little after that, doesn't he actually have trade value? If LeBron and AD can hold down the fort, couldn't Westbrook fetch 2, 3 useful veterans at the trade deadline?
Probably not, for a couple of reasons. The biggest one is he just makes too much money. Like, if you're trying to put $47 million together, it's hard to find 2 or 3 guys that make that much money, let alone 2 or 3 guys that a team wants to trade, let alone 2 or 3 guys they want to trade to not get extra value back.
If fit was the culprit for the Los Angeles Lakers' disastrous 2021-22, this trade goes a long way towards fixing what ails them. Mike Conley is not nearly the athlete that Russell Westbrook is. Virtually any NBA fan can tell you that. He's also a much sharper decision-maker. Perhaps more importantly, he's a lights-out three-point shooter. In fact, Conley may be the blueprint for the ideal point guard to play alongside James. After all, James doesn't need an all-world, on-ball playmaker, he is one. He needs a smart, savvy veteran who will hit the shots he creates for him, and alleviate his ball-handling duties when he's tired. Meanwhile, Bogdanović further improves this team's floor spacing. In fact, he's one of the most consistently strong three-point shooters in the NBA. This Jazz-Lakers trade sends Russell Westbrook to Utah. Why the Utah Jazz do the deal? First of all, let's be clear. If the Utah Jazz do this trade, they've either already moved Donovan Mitchell, or they plan to. After all, this deal does nothing for them in 2022-23. It's become difficult to discuss Russell Westbrook without being critical. We'll try to start by being positive. He's a first-ballot Hall of Famer. With that said, it would be hard to claim he impacts winning by 2022. In fact, he demonstrably does not. Still, if the Jazz are launching a rebuild, that's not an issue for them. In that event, this deal frees up future cap space for them by swapping 2 veterans on longer-term contracts for one on an expiring deal. Donovan Mitchell gets a new wingman, Lakers add shooting. You are reading your 3rd of 4 free articles. Subscribe today and unlock every story on C.com. Already subscribed? Log in here. Kevin Durant's request to play for a new franchise has gridlocked most of the NBA offseason. So until the Nets deal the best player they've ever employed,